Good morning. Good morning. It's Charmaine here. I'm in San Diego today, just loving this weather. I'm feeling really bad for my friends in Canada who are having snowy cold. And we've got Pete and Terri who are joining us from Mexico. So this is great. The webinar is taking place in warm places today. We are here today for the Masterclass series, Building Global Influence Masterclass series. And I'm delighted to have our guests on with us today, Pete and Terri. They're also sponsors of the Global Influence Summit. You've heard me talk a lot about the Global Influence Summit that's coming up in San Diego next week. Oh, I'm so excited. Next week, February 18th and 19th. And actually, Pete's going to be there. So for those of you that are coming or going to be joining after today's call, Masterclass, you'll be able to meet Pete there. Now, we wanted to put this topic together because this is something we've not talked about on this Masterclass series. And it's a really unique approach to building global influence and building your business. So I wanted to share a little bit about Pete and Terri, and then I'm going to read something about them so I really capture some of the essence of Pete and Terri that they sent to me in advance. But I've known Pete and Terri through the Evolutionary Business Council. And Terri, I think you were one of the founders. You were there right from the beginning. You too, Pete? You're a long-termer.
Well, long-term, I wasn't there at the beginning. I came on a little bit after. But,
well, it's an organization that the three of us are proud to be a part of. It is global thought leaders and experts, transformational leaders around the world who are really in the business of making the world a better place through their business. Now, Terri and Pete are up to some really interesting things in their business. Both of them are experts in their field. In fact, I actually had heard of Pete and Terri a couple of years before I had joined the Evolutionary Business Council. And I ended up, I think I kind of stalked you guys on Facebook maybe for a while, to be honest. You might not have known that, but I did. So I've kind of been in their radar for a long time. I love the work they do. And Pete is a business consultant, and he's worked with clients ranging from 1 million to 80 billion in revenue. He leads his own 7-figure consulting company, and he's worked in executive and consulting roles for a variety of companies. And Terri Levine is a business mentor to business leaders across corporate America, as well as to entrepreneurs. And she has built her own multi-million-dollar businesses, has been an executive, a coach, a consulting, and her coaching school, Comprehensive Coaching U, has trained over 5,000 coaches. Wow, Terri. So we are in really good hands with today's topic, aren't we? Now, for those of you that are joining us on the web platform, we've got a chat room. You can come in, put your questions there, your comments there. I will watch the chat room board so that as your comments and questions are coming in, I can let Pete and Terri know. We can address them right away. Also, for those of you on the chat room, you can start entering where you're listening from today and maybe what piqued your interest about this particular masterclass. We'd love to hear that. I've got some questions that came in advance that I'm also going to ask people about. So let's get busy typing in the chat room, and let me tell you what we're going to cover today. Today's topic is maximize your global influence by learning top business consulting skills. And so Pete and Terri are going to show us how to authentically land and negotiate contracts, make powerful connections, build our influence, and increase our visibility, all with your powerful, powerful presence. We've got some questions that we're going to start off with. So Pete and Terri, I just want to welcome you so much for joining the masterclass today.
Thank you. We're excited to be here and be with you, Charmaine, too.
This is fun. Thank you for inviting us.
Oh, I think it's going to be a great conversation. Hi, David. Christina from Connecticut here. Good morning. So let's dive in. One of the questions I thought we could start with, actually, it was somebody who couldn't be on live with us today, and I promised I would ask this question. She's an author and has just started out in her business, and she had joined the webinar or the masterclass today because she was really interested in learning about consulting skills. And the question to me was, when you've not worked in the corporate world or not, she's just started her business, so the term consulting skills was brand new to her. How do you define consultant? What's that mean?
So there's I'll speak and then I'll let Pete speak.
We're going to get this down pretty quick. Ready to
I think that the term consulting is a very important term, and I want to just differentiate it versus the term coach first, because I think that's really important. Coach is where you help people find their own answers, and you don't give advice and you don't give the solutions. A consultant, on the other hand, does use their expertise, does give advice and answers, and still will use some coaching to help people find their own answers and their own advice. So I'm also an author, as you know, Charmaine. And as an author, I use consulting because consulting is a higher paid skill. And so if you want to really be higher paid, I recommend, even though I own a coach training school, I recommend that people use the word consultant and then bury the consulting skill, the coaching skills in with that. So just think about this. If you wrote a book on happiness at work, like my book, Work Yourself Happy, you can consult with people on how to do that using some advice and some mentoring and some consulting and some coaching.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly the way to think about it. So my background in the more of the business roles and corporate environments over the decades of time in those leadership roles, I've got some skill sets that I could choose to write about in a book. I could choose to do trainings about. I could choose to do workshops and seminars, or I could choose to define myself as a business consultant and then go in and guide other people who may have the same challenges that I've previously solved and share with them what to do and how to do it. So if you're an author, you've had to think about what are those things that I'm an expert in so that I'm writing about it. It's just the next natural step to take that out to the business world, knowing that businesses are just made up with bunches of people. And how do you now guide the people who are running those businesses to apply what's in your head that you previously put in a book? Now you're just putting it into guiding those companies to implement what you know.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. We've got a comment here from Denise. Good morning, Denise. Denise says, I need to be a powerful presence in a meeting later this morning, so I'm eagerly listening from Southern California. Well, I think you're in the right space, Denise, to get
Perfect.
a powerful presence, because these two are great examples of that, and the information they share is really going to help. So thank you for that. Now, here's a question to start us off. When we talk about consulting, and I appreciate the descriptions you gave, why is this such a hot topic to be adding consulting to your sort of your realm of business services?
I can address that a little bit. And I'm going to, again, approach it from the coaching distinction. So I've been in the coaching field for about 20 years. And I've also been in the consulting field for a little bit more than that. Coaching became a very, well, I hate to use the word, but I will use it, fad. Everybody all of a sudden said, I'm a coach, and people started to use the term. And there's not a lot of money that's being made in the coaching profession, and I'm just going to be factual about that. My company's done a lot of research. There's a lot of studies done, whereas consultants make a lot more money. So when you add the consulting skill, you're adding huge income opportunity for yourself. And I really encourage people to think about the distinction, not only in the wording, but in the skill set. Let me give this example. When I first started, my website said that I was a marketing coach. And somebody said to me, Terry, you're an expert, so I want help, and can you give me some? And they asked for this advice. And I said, well, no, because as a coach, I'm not allowed to. And they said, well, I'm going to fire you because you're an expert. Your site said you're an expert and I want advice. And I thought, I'd probably fire me too. So as a consultant, I can give you that advice.
Yeah, well, and Terri just made the distinction partly about your revenue opportunities, your fee levels, how much you can actually take in one profession versus another. If you have the coaching skill sets, you can use them in a consulting environment. So that's really, really important. The opposite is not necessarily true without some further development of how you actually go and present yourself, within a company environment, with a room of executives and business leaders. And there's certain things that you want to be able to do to elevate what you're doing with them. The distinction in pay is purely coming from the value that you create for your client. My consulting company, we go in and we help literally create millions of dollars of value in what we're doing in those consulting engagements, literally. And because it's millions of dollars of value that the business is getting, there's a fee level that's proportionate to that, as opposed to helping an individual self-discover the answers. There's value to that, but proportionately, it's a different story.
You know, it's really interesting in that I wear kind of a couple of hats. I work with a lot of authors, but primary side of my business is actually in the corporate world, teaching skills of leadership, conflict management, and communication. And initially, if I think back to when I opened my business many years ago, I opened it up to be a dispute resolution practice. I was a mediator in the corporate world. And one of the things that I found is that every time I finished a mediation in the corporate world, I was being asked for several things. Do you have a book on that? Or do you have a manual that we could actually give to people? Can you come in and train people on the skills they need so they don't have to go to mediation? And, you know, can you come in and consult with can you basically consult with our leaders and walk through some of the cases they're dealing with and help them navigate them differently? And that was so interesting for me, because at the time I was in this mindset of, I just want to mediate. I just want to help people solve problems. And I was leaving the expression leaving money on the table. But the other thing that was happening, I wasn't able to help people as much as I could when I added that other service, because, you know, I'd go in, I'd mediate, the problem was solved, and everyone was happy. But nothing else changed. The team was still operating the same way. The leader was still dealing with things the same way. Relationships hadn't necessarily changed. So I love what you're talking about, creating these wraparound services, and that it's not just a revenue perspective. It's also, how can we really, really help that company and save them money?
Yeah, there's this spectrum really, Charmaine, of where are you able to add value and how much credibility and expertise do you have, all wrap into how you can directly get some bottom line, top line revenue or bottom line profit improvement. It comes down to that. So someone who is an author who writes the book, puts it out into the marketplace, and then sits back and starts doing something else, the value that that book is adding is just whether someone chooses to pick it up and read it and then self-implement. So it's a little bit of value. Someone who's a trainer, now I don't want to, there's a wide range of trainers, but there are some trainers out there whose job is training. They say, I have the skill of standing up in front of a room of people. I can train any PowerPoint deck. What PowerPoint do you want me to train tomorrow? They'll take the deck and they do a great job with it, and then they go away. You know, so we've all seen those training companies before. That's a lower level of expertise than someone who actually has their own content, and they're now going out and teaching people that content and teaching people to deliver. So the value chain is kind of going up the ladder here. Speakers, same thing. People can inspire you to take action in a 90-minute or a 60-minute keynote, and there's some value to that. But what if on any of those touch points, the author, the lower level executing trainer, or the higher level trainer it's their material and they're passionate about it, and then the speaker, what if you then had the opportunity to answer the question when the client asks, that was amazing, can you come in and share with us how to do this? Can you guide us through? Can you help us to implement? And when you're able to do that, then everything begins to change. It's exactly what you said about the mediating. Can you help us do this? And now it's not just a small dollar fee for executing some small engagement. Now it really opens up the opportunity, because you can help them in a lot of ways, save them a lot of money on the bottom line or grow their revenue on the top line, and that's worth tremendous amounts to them. So they're willing to pay you for that.
Can I piggyback on that real quick? What I've seen in my company, and I work with smaller size companies than Pete does typically, is people want the done with you, done for you model, really want that. So as an author, when you write a book, 2 words that come to mind, and I use these all the time: leverage and optimize. So you wrote a book. How can you leverage and optimize that? Well, you can speak, you can train, and you can consult. So you can do at least 3 other things and even more. The biggest thing that I find is the consulting. People will say, okay, I read your book. Now help me with it. Help me do something with it. I want to take action. we are both reading the same book right now, and it's a great book for our business, and we're saying, okay, now we want to do something with it. Most likely we're going to call the person who wrote the book and say, help us implement this in our business. So no matter what your book is, think about, how can I now really be of higher value and higher influence? Because you don't just write a book so somebody reads it. You want to influence and serve more people with your book, and that's how you get paid more also. So it's not just about payment. It really is about how can you affect and serve more people.
Right.
Yeah, beautiful. You know, it's interesting when because I don't mediate anymore, I gave that up about 12 years ago. And part of what happened in that shift, you've both just described it. When I was a mediator, it really was I'm going to call it a one-to-one conversation. I worked with those 2 or 3 or 10 people that were in a conflict, and it was a contained conversation. So my ability to implement big change was contained to basically those people in the room. And as soon as I was able to add on consulting, some mentoring around conflict, some different services around training and speaking, what actually happened is that side of my business became so busy that the mediating, I just hired people to do it for me then. So my business grew, and I got to jump in with both feet to what I absolutely loved doing, which was consulting and speaking. And then, but what I didn't notice till years later, maybe I'm a slow learner, I'm not sure, but years later I thought, well, that was a cool shift, because now I have the ability to help so many more people and share a message in a much wider way than if I'm just working with 2 people in a room. So it sounds like what you're saying is, when you think about consulting and adding that to the array of services that you offer in your business, it gives you great potential to impact change in a big way outside of just the people you're working with directly.
Absolutely. That's a key critical point.
Yeah, so you're talking about influence, and how do you get more influence? And you can influence a lot of individuals with what you know and what you put out there. If you can get into a company where there's 1,000 employees or bigger than that even, and you can start changing the way that they think, change the way that they play the game of their business. We talk about the game of life. Well, there's the game of business too, because our lives, we're people and we interact in a company. I had a client conversation just 2 days ago before flying down here. And one of their core values has to do with getting everybody's needs met. Well, wait a minute here. We've got hundreds and hundreds of employees. The shop floor operator who runs a machine, is this person getting his needs met here? I mean, that's a revolutionary question to ask.
Yes.
If you can have hundreds or thousands of people in your business because of what you're doing in the world, you have your products and services that you sell, and the company needs to create a profit and thrive. Well, you're employing people, and you have customers and other stakeholders who rely on you. How many lives can you change by what you do? So if you can do that better, you can reach more people.
Absolutely.
There's another unfortunate reality, which is there's a lot of companies that are struggling. And if they don't fix whatever their challenges are, they may not be here in a year or a couple of years. And maybe it's a slow death, right? But the idea of, there may be some strategies that they've put in place and some styles that they've chosen to operate that they haven't kept up, and they're falling behind, and there's some new competitor that's coming in and taking over their market share. They could ruin a whole bunch of lives if they don't do some things differently very, very, very quickly. So a lot of consulting is recognizing this and helping to fix big problems that will, essentially, if not fixed, they'll, if not lose the business altogether, their market share will go down. They'll be downsizing. And these are harsh realities. This is what happens in the business world. You could a 10-person company, and if you have to let 2 people go, 20% reduction because your revenue's down. I mean, that's, these people, you probably lived with them for a long time. Oh my goodness. So this is why you can influence by, through consulting, by impacting all of these lives for tons of people. So that's connecting it back to what you're so passionate about with the influence. It's really, really
I love that connect. So here's a question that I know people are dying to have answered. So they're excited about the possibility of adding consulting to the services they're currently offering. Maybe they're in a new business and this is going to help them direct where their business goes. What do they need to think about? Like, how would even someone take that first step to implement consulting as one of their business revenue arms?
Well, I think the first suggestion is to think about what your expertise is. What do you already know? What are you an expert at? And you know, sometimes people will say to us, and I said this at our last event in Philadelphia, they're like, oh, well, I'm not an expert at anything. And that's so ridiculous, because whether in your personal life or your business life, you are an expert. There are things that you take for granted that you know, that they're so for granted you don't even realize that you're an expert at it, because you just do it automatically, and somebody wants to learn how to do that. So the first thing we suggest is think about what comes easily, naturally, effortlessly to you, because there are other people who want that skill set. That's the first place to start.
Yeah. So you can think of yourself as an expert in business because you've come out of that world, or you can think of yourself as an expert in some other cool thing that you know. You have the life PhD, whether it's an actual PhD doctorate or the life experience equivalent that elevates you to expertise in something. The question to answer is, how can I apply this in a business environment? And if you can answer that question, then you can declare yourself a business consultant and then start learning how to actually create that impact. But the first point is, what is my expertise and how can I use that in a business environment? So with that broader definition, business consulting is not just limited to people who came out of business and have created some success in their previous business experiences. There's a lot of those folks, but it's broader than that. How can you apply what you are an expert in to improve a business or lots of businesses in your area of expertise?
Beautiful. You know, it's an interesting conversation that you're raising. For those of you on the chat box, why don't you type in what you're an expert of? I'd love to hear what is your expertise. You might have a few items, so put them in the chat box. We interviewed Marla Tabaka the other day from Inc. magazine, and of course she's a radio host, and it was so cool. We were talking about how to pitch media, so completely different topic. And Marla, who's also a sponsor of the Global Influence Summit, was talking about remembering what you're an expert as of also in your personal world. So are there things that you've experienced, are things that you have gone through in life that because of you coming through on the other side, you're an expert in that? And it was really interesting, because I had a conversation with a colleague of mine later, and I sort of look at her as she does one certain service in a business, and that's kind of the viewpoint that I see her. And then I started thinking about, wow, but you know what? She's had some really interesting travel experiences. I think she's probably an expert in kind of solo travel. All of her travel has been alone into places I would never go alone. And I mean, there's another area of expertise. Denise says, helping people help their pets live longer, happier, healthy lives. I love that, Denise. And I know who Denise is. And you know, Denise there's something, she's going to be going to the Global Influence Summit. Yay, Denise. So you'll meet her there, Pete. And, you know, she really is on a mission to improve animals' lives, and she was a sponsor of one of my kindness tours, actually, and I love the work she's doing in the pet industry. So I love that. That's an example of what you're an expert in.
Absolutely, and that could easily be a business. Easily. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, what's cool about Denise is, and Denise, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that where I first met Denise and she came into my radar, we belong to a group called the Women in the Pet Industry Network, because of course I have my books with our dog Toby, and we do some work with Toby. That's my pet project, the philanthropy side of our business. But I met Denise because she runs these incredible first aid classes. I had no idea that there are first aid classes for people who have pets in their family, like me, to actually learn how to do first aid on your pet. And so she travels around doing first aid classes, but she also teaches, she partners with other businesses to, again, complete that mission. And then Jean says, I am an inspirational poet. And this, you guys are going to love this. And this is so true. Jean is someone I deeply adore. She'll be at the Global Influence Summit. She has written a poem every morning for the last 18 years, guys.
Wow. Wow.
I'm trying to do the math in my head. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
boy.
Wow.
It's a big number, right?
Isn't that incredible? I just love that. You know, she actually wrote a poem about why she's going to the Global Influence Summit and turned it into a video. It was just phenomenal. What Jean says is, how do I get an inspirational poem into the inbox of every employee in a large corporation every Monday morning? Oh, Jean did the math for you. Over 6,000 poems. That is outrageously amazing.
So Jean, a poem a day keeps the doctor away, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Pete, tell us more.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So congratulations. So let me answer your question. You know, in the world of business, you want to, whatever it is that you're pitching needs to end up translating into benefit in some way. So if you have the poem a day or the poem a week in the inbox of all of the employees, there's a connection to employee well-being. There's a connection to maybe their culture and a positivity. I don't know what the content of your poems are, but just I'm guessing that there's somewhat of a positive message in there. If you had some context about the company and what their mission is, and you could then tailor some of your writing to help them get their message out and get their employees to embrace the core values you want, as opposed to, well, what do we want poems for? I haven't done a poem since I was in 3rd grade. You know, some executive mindset that could come in, you know, or a business leader who's got head down, how do I get more sales? What are you talking about poems for? So if you could find the connection point and the common ground and how your poem can help, I think this is a really ripe opportunity to reinforce things that they're trying to get across to their employee base. I think that's a way to do it.
And a thought that I have is one of my books, Stop Managing, Start Coaching, I talk about, and I have a lot of funky things in the book that are kind of, that's really out there, Terry, like have your employees just dress in silly costumes for a day and people go, well, that's not, you know, business stuff. No, it's not. And one of the things that I consult on is things that are inspirational and motivational, because I show you a lot of statistics, which you can do, absolutely, that basically say when your employees are motivated and inspired, statistics show that they are more likely to be productive, and productive employees save the company a lot of money. They go out less on sick time, sick leave. There's also less injury at work. So we're tying everything into finances, which are important to companies. And productive employees make a company more profitable and thrive and help the bottom line. So I believe there's a great tie-in to inspirational messages tying into mental health. And that is a big topic today of the disengaged worker. So we teach a concept at our events called core story, and you could have a great core story around this, and I think it would be a very easy sale for companies. It's actually fun. I'm getting excited about it.
That's cool. Are you guys going to be talking the core stories for your event that's coming up in San Diego on April 9th and 10th?
Yes, we're going to teach the concept and actually show people how to do it, and they're going to get started on their core story. It's one of the things we love to do.
Awesome. You know, Jean, my brain is just going, I can't wait to see you in San Diego next week, because I do a lot of work with big companies as well, like Pete and Terri, and there are so many different ways now that employers are creating communication flow in the organization. One thing that was really cool, I just got to share this. I worked with a government department who I thought was extremely progressive, and it was in the social services industry in Canada. And they were really going through a lot of culture change and just shifts in the organization and policies and departments and so forth. And so the minister of that particular department at the time wanted to find ways to keep the employees engaged. And every Monday she did one of those, a voicemail. So the employees came into work, the first message they heard was from the minister of that department in the government. And she would actually read a motivational quote or a short motivational story. And, you know, she did that for like a year, and people couldn't wait to get in. They felt connected with her and with part of the bigger picture. So boy, oh boy, Jean, you've got great creativity. So I see great potential. We've got another question, guys, from Callie. Hi, Callie. What questions are useful to identify clearly what our greatest expertise is? I'm familiar with some traits, yet I'm Curious to redefine. My gifts are being inspirational to uplift for constructive change with childlike wonder.
Ooh. Oh, I love the phraseology. I'll just share a little bit. One of the things that, and this is going way back, my first book, Work Yourself Happy. Here's an exercise, and I still find this really useful. Take a pen and a piece of paper, and I really mean not to keyboard this, so I'm being very specific. When you write, you engage both hemispheres of your brain, and when you keyboard, you don't use both hemispheres. So to be most creative, you want to write and you want to just be in flow, and don't judge what you write. Just keep writing, 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 and don't judge your writing. So I want you to really go decade by decade. And for some of us, it'll be more decades. And just think, what did I enjoy during those decades? So for me, I loved Barbie dolls. And I used to be super creative with Barbie dolls. I could just come up with the most wild stories. And one of the traits that I have is I'm still very creative and I'm very inventive. So you notice a trait that you have. Then you go to the next decade and you notice these traits that you have. And as you sit back after you've done this, you circle or star or whatever you want to do, and you just notice these different themes that you have. And as you see the themes, you're going to see that there is a thread that ties together. And if you're not able to do this for yourself, then you connect with someone who is a friend, family member, coach, mentor, somebody, and you say, look at this. What do you see that goes together with me? And it's going to be very crystal clear to someone. So for me, I mentioned the Barbie dolls for a specific reason. I'm still very creative. I can still tie things together and come up with stories and be very inventive, which is why I created thousands and thousands and thousands of products, because I love to create and invent. So you want to see how you have a life pattern. That's what you're really good at. That's your expertise. That's your brilliance that no one can take from you, and that's what you want to use.
So was the Barbie doll your first decade or a recent decade? So that is a great exercise. I'll answer as well with, notice what people are asking you for when they're asking your advice. Notice what questions you're getting. Hey, how did you do that? Or how could I do whatever it might be? And if there's a pattern to those questions, that means other people are noticing that you have something. You know, even with the business consulting, the Business Consultant Institute that we have for years, because I have that corporate executive and formal big company business consulting in my background. And then when I went off and started my own consulting company, I would get phone calls, not just from people saying, can you come in and help my company? I would get calls from other people that I know, and sometimes referrals from someone who, I'm getting a call from someone I haven't met yet, and their question would be, I'm starting a consulting company, and I know that you've got a successful one. I have some questions for you. That's the market speaking, right? They're identifying that I've got some business consulting expertise. Now, I may have figured that out externally. I may have come to that through an exercise like what Terri described. So you've got multiple ways to come at this. Do the bottom up, the pen and paper exercise. Just sit back and reflect. Notice, what are people asking you about? And you may come up with some triggers and some patterns there too.
And sometimes you choose the market, as Pete's saying, and sometimes the market chooses you. So when I became a coach, the last thing I ever thought I would do was start a coach training school. And just like Pete was saying, people were coming to him. People kept raising their hands saying, I want to be a coach. And I would say, well, go to this school or that school. And they'd come back and they'd say, no, I want you to train me. And I'm like, wait a minute, Terri, pay attention. People are speaking. So also notice what the market is saying to you.
Great feedback. You know, it's like that cliche that people notice things about ourselves that we don't see, and it's hard for us to sometimes see and appreciate our gifts. So wonderful exercise. I'm going to do that. I'll do that homework myself, because I think we transform as people a lot through different experiences and the different paths that our business takes. And who we are now may not be who we were 5 years ago. So I love that exercise. Jean says, thank you so much for all the good tips. I handwrite my poems every day. Definitely better than keyboarding. And Callie says, that's helpful. Thank you. Now I have another question for you guys. When you think about having a powerful presence, because I know some consultants in my world that I just think have this amazing, authentic, powerful presence. You know some of them. I mean, Dr. Sean Duperrin now, and also Nobel Peace Prize nominee. Wow. And before all of that, Dr. Sean is a really powerful presence. I mean, she's an expert in her field of good gossip and media, and she's someone who kind of exudes that, and she is one of the most gracious, authentic people I know. And I think a lot of times when we talk about powerful presence, people have a perspective that's a little bit different. Another person that I think has great, powerful presence, we had the opportunity to introduce Jerry Foster. Actually, we interviewed him on a masterclass series. He talks about branding. And wow, his passion and his expertise for his core genius, which is branding, it sort of gives him this strong, strong presence. So when you think about powerful presence, what else goes into that?
I happen to know Dr. Sean and Terri very well, and I respect and admire them both so much. And one of the traits for me that comes through for both of them is a couple traits: authenticity. They know who they are, and you know who they are because they're authentic. They're always who they are. I've been to many of Dr. Sean's events, and she'll let you know where her lines are, where her boundaries are. She'll give you honest, authentic coaching. Jerry, with his branding, and he and I do marketing, he does branding. We've paralleled many clients together and worked really well in tandem. And he'll also let you know where he agrees, where he disagrees, and be authentic in that. And the other thing is the word that you use, passion. They both have such passion for what they do, and they're doing what they love and loving what they do, and that's obvious and that's clear. And they also really choose to share what they do in a big way and to impact many people. So those are things that come across to me.
Yeah, and those were specific to those two individuals, but they apply. I know that when I think of someone who walks in the room, there are people, like, for example, speakers, they come up and they take the stage, and the room just is there. They have attention, and they just command that. I think self-confidence is a really big deal because the elements that you just described about authenticity, there's a certain amount of courage that you have to be yourself all the time, as opposed to, well, I wonder how am I supposed to behave? What are they looking for? And if you suddenly become something that you're not, so if there's a misalignment, energetically at minimum, that's going to be read by the audience. The audience could be a room full of people. It could be the one-on-one conversation that you're having with a potential business partner or potential client. They're going to know. So you want to build trust by being yourself. Trust by being, this is kind of high on the emotional intelligence scale of being able to deliver direct, sometimes not the best news, right? You deliver bad news. That's where Sean is amazing. Sean can hit you between the eyes with that shot that you really don't want to hear. She's done it with me, and I appreciate her for it. And it's delivered in a way, she's a master at paving the way to allow that to be something that I give her permission to do, right? So these are all really powerful traits to that powerful presence that you're talking about.
Well, I love that because when you're expanding your business or adding consulting as one of the business skills to the mix of what you already offer, that's so important to understand the presence that you're going to be bringing to clients, because I agree that that congruence is so important for the clients. And what we want to do, I think, is what I'm gathering from both of you today, is that when we add consulting as a business skill into the mix of what we're offering, it's about building long-term relationships relationships with clients. So it's not like the goal is to pop in, help something, and then pop out and never see them again. I'm getting a sense from you that this is where our creativity could come in. How else could we help them through consulting? How else could we be of even more service and keep that long-term relationship alive? So as a consultant, what can we do to keep that long-term relationship alive with those clients and continue to build our influence with them?
One of the things that I'm always doing is I'm asking the client what's bringing value and what else would bring value, and not necessarily trying to sell my services. What else would bring you value? What else do you see? What areas do you feel need focus? Where am I helping you? Where could you use other services? I don't know if I could provide them. I tell the client right up front, but what might be helpful? Maybe I can look into other avenues for you. And myself, my company, my consultants, we keep our eyes open on everything, even areas where maybe we are not the people to be giving advice, but constantly looking at avenues and areas. So where I am right now in Mexico, I do work here as a sales and marketing consultant, not as an operations consultant. Yet I was in a marketing meeting and there were operational issues. And so I said, I just want to point out some operational things that I'm seeing because they're affecting the marketing side. They really do work hand in hand. And all of a sudden that led the next day to meeting with the vice president of operations and then being asked, well, could your company help with these areas? I wasn't pitching my services. I mean, I wasn't even here trying to get that part of the contract. It's just, I care about the company and I care about the work we do, and I want the marketing work to be excellent. And so I need to be aware, and so does my company. So it's being aware, it's caring about the project and your customer, and that's where I really believe being authentic and delivering the best value and always having open communication with the client allows for the long-term projects to develop.
Yeah. So if you think about you and your company, who is your client, and you wanting them to succeed, whoever your clients are, and this is true for your customers. So those who are not in the consulting world, just you want your customers to do well. So in the consulting environment, love them, want to see them succeed. Know that you've been engaged in this little tiny piece of what they could actually take on, and do the best you can to add tremendous value. And then add extra value, similar to the conversation that Terri had, pointing out operational issues and challenges. There's no linear solution, especially in a business, right? Everything is multifaceted. And in our company, we figured out created a holistic model of the integrated pieces. It's rare that we touch all of those pieces in a client engagement. We end up being asked to come in on one of the pieces in that model. Over time, if we continue to add value, we will likely be starting to work on some of the other pieces of that, because we're sharing, because we're open, because we want them to succeed. And in the end, continuing to add value way over and above what they're paying you, they're going to continue to ask you for your help.
Yeah, I love that, and that relationship is so critical. It's interesting when we were talking about relationship and building influence, and the question that comes up for me, and I'm sure it's coming up for a lot of people, how do you create influence in consulting business, but without feeling salesy? And a lot of people have a real discomfort with sales, or maybe it's a mindset. I know Harrison Klein, I just love how he talks about mindset. Maybe it's a mindset issue, but some people have a block with that aspect of selling. How do we create that without selling?
Well, I think it's about value. It's about what can we really do to help you and understand who they are, what they want. Terry's questions about, what are we doing that's adding value? What else can we do? Well, it's also sitting back and understanding what are the business issues and challenges, because ultimately these are business leaders who are running their companies, running their departments, running whatever. If you have a big $1 billion+ company, you might be working with a relatively small division. If it's a small company, you're probably working with the owner. And they have things that are driving them crazy. They have frustrations. They, we can't ship the product on time, or the suppliers are yelling at us because we aren't ordering in time to allow them to get the dates that we need to hit, or we have quality problems, or we have these service issues, and whatever they are. We have employee issues. Our employees keep leaving, right? Our key employees are leaving to go somewhere else. This is the set of business problems that would give any business owner, any manager, a big headache. So getting in and helping to understand at the real base level, well, what's really going on here? And you, with your outsider perspective, can sometimes get underneath and see things that are just not obvious. They're obvious to you, but they're not obvious to them. And then being able authentically, with high integrity, coming back and describing, here's what's really going on. Here's what I think you need to address. And then building the trust that then allows you to be the one that they tap on the shoulder to go help. And there's no sales in that. It's all adding value, pointing out you want them to succeed.
Beautiful.
I wrote a book years ago, Sell Without Selling. And I was trained in traditional sales, and I was top #1 in 2 companies. And the word sell became a really dirty word for me, because I would sell and be #1 in a company, and I would go home and I would throw up. And that's really 100% true, because I really understood that I just knew how to sell. I knew all the closes, I memorized them, and I felt like I manipulated people. So my philosophy is this: if I believe in what I have and that it matches what a person needs, and that I'm creating value for someone, and that I'm not manipulating, but I'm making an offer, then the word sell is a beautiful word, because it's just serve. And this is what I think. If you come to my house and I've just made fresh lemonade and you come to the door, I will say, Charmaine, would you like some lemonade? And if you say yes, that's lovely. And if you say no, I won't go in my head and go, oh my gosh, she's rejecting me. Charmaine doesn't like me. I will say, maybe she's not thirsty. Maybe she doesn't like lemon. It doesn't matter. And I won't overcome that objection. So all I do is go, I have something that I think is valuable. I'm not going to selfishly hold it to myself. I'm going to offer it. And that's how I think of sales. Just make sure that what you have is valuable, and only offer it when you believe it's a fit, but certainly don't hold it back from people. That's how I think of it.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's interesting, because I talk to so many entrepreneurs, even as we've been doing the masterclass series. That's been a question that's come up in a variety of different topics for the masterclasses, that people, we create a mindset, whatever it is, a discomfort picking up the phone to phone somebody. That came up on, I can't remember which class, but somebody had said, they go to great lengths to procrastinate from picking up the phone, and they feel much more comfortable with email. But the whole point that they discovered through that conversation is email doesn't really build relationships. It's that personal contact. Like we were talking about how much we love Webinar Jam before we got on. So we could have used another platform with what you would see instead would just be a screen and your picture coming up, or maybe just a slide, and that was it. But the fact that we get to be in conversation and people get to see you and experience you, that goes so much further in building the relationship. And I think the influence, because I get to go and good gossip about you guys, and I'll share a funny story, and I'll say, oh, Pete was sharing this juicy tip, and I would share it in a way that I'm actually attached to the content, because I saw your face when you're explaining it. I saw your excitement. Next time I see Terri, I'm definitely going to say yes to the lemonade, because I do love lemonade. And if I have to come to Mexico to have it, that's even better. But what I'm hearing too is that sometimes we get in our own way, and if we're getting in our own way, we're going to get in the client's way. Is that a fair statement?
Definitely, 100% true. And it's not really fair to the client or the potential client. It's not fair. I think to myself, for example, I did a lot of work with General Electric for a number of years. If I didn't make that first offering, I wouldn't have been able to help them. And I know the work that I did was incredibly valuable for them. based upon not only their testimonials, but what I saw happen within the company. And for me, and I know for Pete, it's not about our wows. Like, we just were on a call with our clients right before this, a mastermind call. And the clients were thanking us. And we said, you know, you guys, it's not about that for us. Like, that's not doing it. What it is for us is hearing your success. So, you know, it's nice that you're praising us, but it's so cool for us, like sitting here, just hearing your success. That's where we get our wows, you know? So it was so good for me knowing if I didn't put myself out there and make that phone call and get in with General Electric, I wouldn't have been having all those years of watching what happened for those people and the company. But more important for me, and I'm going to be, you know, very transparent because I always am, it wasn't about the company's success. It was about each individual in the company. For me, that's where my wows come from, each person in the company.
Yeah. It's interesting you just said that, because I've had clients before who, you know, their business is making bombs for the military, right? It's like, well, geez, that doesn't really align with what I'm all about. But there's people in those companies that I like and care about, and if I can help them, you know, then there's a connection point that just feels so good.
Yeah. Oh, I love the conversations of connection, because it is key to building influence. But we need connection in the world. And people in their role as employees, when I go in and do speaking, or years ago when I used to be a mediator, that's one of the things that I heard. They used all different words for it, but I heard time and time again, is that people wanted to be connected to the company in the sense of connected to their vision or values, and to know that they're showing up every day and doing their job, whatever their job was actually contributing to the big picture of the organization. And they also told me that they wanted to be connected to each other, that they didn't want to just feel like they were coming into work and putting in their time. And you identified earlier that when people are connected, when people are working in an environment that's supportive, there are so many benefits. And then as a consultant, that's where we can help. Now here, as we're winding down, let me ask you this question. So people have learned a lot today about adding consulting to the mix of the business services, what it takes to be a consultant, what are some of the qualities of a consultant, how we can consult and expand our influence without feeling salesy or being salesy. What would be a couple of takeaways that after today's masterclass people could walk away and start doing right now?
Oh boy.
I know. That's a whole other class for that question.
That's a whole class.
And another hour. Well, first of all, identify your expertise, because even if you are an entrepreneur and you have your own business right now, that business could add a service line called consulting to help people to use your product in a different, better way. So that's, you know, the possibilities are really endless here. How are you an expert, and how can you then help businesses with what you know? Because just using what Terri was just describing, you've got the lemonade. You can offer it now. You probably never realized that you had lemonade someone else might want to take a sip of, but you do. So I'm going to have lemonade when this call goes, right?
You and I have heard the lemonade in San Diego, Pete.
You're piling into that.
That's awesome. Awesome homework. What about you, Terri? What's our homework?
Piece is absolutely critical. And then the second thing is really don't be afraid. So this is a big thing that I just want to say. Sometimes you recognize something, you go, oh yeah, that consulting thing, that was really great masterclass. Yeah, I need to do that. I have to do that. And then you just get some fear that gets into your mindset, and you go, yeah, but, and it goes back here. I'm just going to encourage everyone to take a step forward, a physical action that you can do right after this masterclass that will move you forward. Anything that you can physically do to move you forward into the energy of consulting.
Yeah, it's interesting because we just talked about this. We mentioned we had a mastermind call with some of our clients earlier, and one of the things that they are seeing some success with is because they are taking action when a year ago or 6 months ago, whatever, they might not have, right? They would have talked themselves out of it. They would have been uncomfortable. We even have one of them who's really going, and they know the topic area, and they are in client conversations about the topic area, they haven't totally fleshed out the program yet. And what they would have maybe done before is spent the next year creating this program, and nobody's getting it yet, right? It's about service. You know, I'm going to spend a year brewing the lemonade as opposed to making sure that I have lemonade because you want lemonade and need it right now because you're thirsty.
Gotcha. And a question just came in from Kelly. Do you guys have a tip you could give Kelly on how to create an action plan? What would be your quick tip on creating action plans?
All right, well, I'll jump into that one. So, you know, in essence, you need to have really good clarity of where you're going. What's the goal in the first place? And every goal should have an action plan. So the action plan is start out with some basic milestones. So what's the end result look like? And then what are the steps to get there? Maybe I should do it this way, right? What's the end in mind and the steps to get there? But the idea now with those major milestones, break it into its smaller tasks. Some of these things would be really easy for you to figure out. Other things might be more difficult. You may need to get some research. Google is your friend in those cases. Finding other people who have done what you are striving to do. So think of if you wanted to become a best-selling author, there's Charmaine Hammond, there's Terri Levine, there's Pete Winiarski. We've all done that. You can ask us questions about that as you're building your action plan so you can figure out what are the steps I need to take. So if you're a business consultant, you want to launch the business, launch your consulting company, what are the things that you need to do? Expertise, define how you can serve your clients, identify who potential clients are, go meet them, talk to them, find them, add value to them for $0. What's the thing that you can present to them, give them, and then build the relationships. So there's your action plan. How's that?
Awesome. I love it. Well, and Toby agreed because he let out a huge big bark. For some reason today, he's just wanting to be part of the masterclass series. So there you go. You have Toby's seal of approval, bark of approval with that content. So Pete and Terri, I'm really excited because I'm going to be going to an event that you're having in San Diego on April 9th and 10th. So tell us about this event that you've got going on.
This is awesome. First of all, I'm so excited that you're coming.
Me too.
This is going to be great.
I will give a big hug to you.
Yeah, that's right. Share lemonade will be awesome. So, so this is the ultimate training for business consultants. Think of if you are an author, a speaker, a trainer, a business coach, or already a business consultant, because there are certainly some business consultants who are looking to really upgrade and upscale their business. Then be here at this event because we're going to teach you the basic principles of what business consulting is and how to reposition yourself. We're going to take your consulting skills up and we're going to help you market like crazy so that you can actually get out of the gates very, very, very fast. And I know you want to say more about that.
Yeah, I do. So I'm going to speak to you about what happened at our last event a little bit. So we had a big mix of people in Philadelphia for the last event. We had people who were coaches, consultants, trainers, speakers, authors, as Pete said, and just some business people. And we had all levels of consultants, people who were newer in consulting, mid-range, and people who were super successful multi-million-dollar consultants. Every single person, and there's lots of testimonials on the businessconsultantevent.com page, but they've amped up their game and they've added revenue streams and they've added income and profits and made connections. And I'm going to teach you the stuff that I love to teach, which is marketing, selling without selling, how to create extraordinary relationships, through influence, through reverse marketing where people are calling you and contacting you and hiring you and your ideal clients are just showing up in your space. So you're going to love that. Pete is going to really, really help you amp up your whole consulting game and your consulting skills. So we're like this blend of amping up your consulting, adding on a revenue stream, and then doing this magical marketing. And it's fun. It's a great blend of people. We give you a lot of opportunities, exercises, and we keep it small. So you get a lot of private coaching, consulting, mentoring, and it's a really fun experience at the same time. And you are going to learn so much in 2 days, but you're not going to leave going, oh, What do I do? You're going to have a game plan because it's experiential, and we keep stopping to make sure you got it, and you're doing it right there in the room. So after 2 days, you leave and you're like, I know what to do. I'm doing it.
Yeah, it's really hot. I almost forgot about this. So Charmaine, as good as that is.
Oh my gosh. Hello.
What? Tell us.
All right, so what we just described is going to make all the difference for your business. I mean, people in the first month they managed to get, like, one testimony was $50,000 worth of revenue, another one was $61,000. I mean, this is just in like a month afterwards, implementing the things. Big results. But here's the other thing. So we're so geared up about this is amazing. The program itself is amazing. And we almost forgot about this other bolt-on layer thing that we're doing. Because Terry mentioned we're keeping it small. I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah, there's a reason we're keeping it small. So we're limiting the number of people in the room, because every single person who comes to the event, we are interviewing on camera, live interview, and we are creating a documentary about all-star consultants.
Wow.
Huge. It is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
So the thing, I mean, Charmaine, think of this, right? If I'm trying to get my business to just rocket up, I don't have, maybe people don't know who I am yet. I don't have contacts yet. I don't have a whole lot of exposure. So automatic, instant credibility, instant expertise, instant exposure, being able to say, so client, prospect, you talk through all the things that you talk through because you figure out your expertise and you light them up to that, right? And then you say, by the way, I'm in this movie, this documentary movie about all-star consultants. So that's why we limit it to size, because we probably could do up to 100, and that's it, right? In terms of number of people. So it's a limited size, nice intimate group that we can then also really dive in the the actual seminar itself, the 2-day workshop, help people out very, very directly. We put people up in the front of the room when they have a big challenge. We call it the hot seat, although I don't want people to think they're.
Yeah, it's not really hot.
It's not that hot.
It's not on fire.
It's San Diego. So anyway, there's that opportunity. The other thing beyond the movie, so that's an extended cut version of the movie. Everybody can then share their YouTube clip with their clients and all that. The number of people in the room, will get about 15 or so into a DVD. So we'll DVD produce it a little bit differently.
Very professionally, by the way.
Oh my goodness,
professional crew and everything.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the real deal. So this is going to look pretty dang awesome, if you don't mind me saying so, right? So because we did this in Philadelphia when the last event we did, and we're producing the movie right now. We've got some of the preliminary clips. It's fantastic. So
it is.
So this is where it gets really better. The people who are selected for the DVD that's based on, is their content a great fit for the DVD? Did they interview well? Some people interviewed incredibly well, but were not a business consultant. They talked about the other business, and they weren't quite 100% sure how to work in the business consulting. So that wasn't what they interviewed and talked about. And so that's fine. They just didn't make the DVD cut. But the people who did are really amazing powerhouses. We also have a book deal already.
Wow. Woohoo!
People are all being added, they're contributing a chapter to the book. And so the DVD comes out, the book of the same name will get them out into the marketplace at the same time. They'll get a lift from that just by nature of being involved in it. And then they'll get a lift, obviously, as they go and communicate to their communities, their clients and their prospects directly. And their credibility goes up, their exposure goes up.
Their fees go up. That's how you leverage and
optimize. And that's like raising the water level for everybody, right, when that happens. So that's what's really, really cool about this. And we're so excited.
So you be in a DVD, be in a book. I mean, you've got just an amazing opportunities here. And we really want to help you amp up your business. Really want to do it with you.
Wow, I can't wait to be there. April 9th and 10th, folks, in San Diego. Where do people register? How do they find out more?
businessconsultantevent.com. So business consultant, singular.
Consultant
event.com. And I want to share with everyone. So we talked about all these really cool things and the level of results people are getting. And so the value of all of this is pretty tremendous. And the normal general admission tuition for this is $14.97. There's early bird scaling that back right now to $3.97.
Wow.
And
It's better.
This is our gift to you in this community, people who are watching this. There's a coupon code, a special discount code, bringing it down to $197 that we want to share with you all. But you have to go and make this happen. We want to see registration. So
it's about taking physical action now, right? We talked about that.
This is part of the action plan that you talked about. Perfect. Yeah. Wow, that is just incredible. Oh my gosh.
I want to give you the coupon code.
So businessconsultantevent.com, and it's global, GLOBAL, global 197. So global as in global influence, global 197, because we're bringing that down to 197. So let's make that happen. I want to see you in that room.
Every one of you, see you in the room. Absolutely. Wow. Give you lemonade.
So generous. Wow, wow, wow. I can't wait. April 9th and 10th, San Diego. We'll email the code to everyone as well. And Business Consultant. Give the website one more time.
businessconsultantevent.com.
Perfect. Well, I just want to thank you both for this incredible information that you shared today. I mean, I am walking away with such value. I know everyone listening is walking away with such value, and we will see you in San Diego.
We will. Yes. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing everybody there and hugging you, Charmaine.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for sharing, and thank you all for being on with us today. Appreciate you.
You bet. You bet. Back at you. Thanks, Charmaine.